If you give back, right, if you give back and you get out there and you show yourself, it's very hard to cheer for a guy if he can't handle the defeat. He's kind of got to show that he can deal with both sides of it, that life does move on, life does go forward. That simple shot of Alex Pereira, but it really told a heck of a story. And yes, I do think it's one of the big reasons that the crowd forgives him, accepts him, and is so happy to see him.
Chael Sonnen, along with others from the MMA community, has raised concerns about Alex Pereira's future, sparking discussions on what lies ahead for the reigning UFC champion. However, despite these concerns, Daniel Cormier believes that Alex Pereira remains a massive star regardless of any losses he experiences in the octagon. According to Cormier, defeat does not alter Pereira's approach to engaging with fans or his overall sporting presence. His ability to maintain his stature and popularity, regardless of results, sets him apart as one of the most resilient figures in MMA.
One thing we know is that Alex Pereira, he doesn't allow losing a fight to affect the way that he goes and interacts with the fans. He's still a massive star, Chael.
Building on this, Cormier compared Alex Pereira's approach to stardom with that of fighters like Cain Velasquez and Khabib Nurmagomedov, who built their mystique by maintaining a low profile outside of competition. He noted that while some fighters enhance their appeal by staying out of the spotlight between fights, Pereira takes the opposite approach, remaining ever present in the public eye. Rather than diminishing his popularity, this constant engagement seems to fuel his connection with fans, making him one of the sport's most captivating figures.
One of the things that made Cain Velasquez a star, made Khabib a star, is they're here when it's time to fight, and then they disappear. I always thought that the less you give people, the better they respond to you. But this guy's always around, and I think that him being ever present might be why people love him so much.
Adding to this, Chael Sonnen expressed surprise and admiration for Alex Pereira's public appearance after the loss, noting that many wouldn't have expected him to be present, especially at a non-pay-per-view event in a different country. He highlighted Pereira's demeanor, pointing out that instead of appearing dejected, the UFC champion carried himself well and dressed sharply. Sonnen admitted that even from home, he was excited to see Pereira on screen, appreciating how the fighter remains visible and engaged with the audience.
I don't think we expected him to surface. I don't think that we expected him to be dressed nice and not be moping around, not to mention it wasn't a pay-per-view, it's in a different country. I mean, there was a lot of things where even I at home, when they did that cameo, I kind of popped. I was really happy to see him there. I thought that he looked great. I like that he shows his face.
Expanding on this, Chael Sonnen emphasized the importance of a fighter's ability to handle defeat, noting that fans struggle to support someone who can't move forward after a loss. He pointed out that Alex Pereira's willingness to stay visible and engage with the public plays a crucial role in maintaining his connection with the audience. Sonnen highlighted how a single shot of Pereira at the event spoke volumes about his character, demonstrating resilience and the ability to embrace both victory and defeat. According to Sonnen, this openness is a key reason why the crowd continues to accept, forgive, and celebrate him.
If you give back, right, if you give back and you get out there and you show yourself, it's very hard to cheer for a guy if he can't handle the defeat. He's kind of got to show that he can deal with both sides of it, that life does move on, life does go forward. That simple shot of Alex Pereira, but it really told a heck of a story. And yes, I do think it's one of the big reasons that the crowd forgives him, accepts him, and is so happy to see him.
Echoing this sentiment, Daniel Cormier has praised Alex Pereira, describing him as the embodiment of what MMA represents. Despite experiencing losses to Israel Adesanya and Magomed Ankalaev, Pereira's star continues to shine brighter than ever, cementing his status as one of the sport's biggest names. Cormier expressed admiration for Pereira, both as an individual and a fighter, wishing him the best while acknowledging his incredible resilience and presence in the sport. According to Cormier, Pereira's ability to remain a massive star even after setbacks showcases his true impact on MMA.
Alex Pereira is truly the definition of what MMA is, because I mean, we saw him lose to Adesanya, we saw him lose to Magomed, and he's as big a star today as he's ever been. He's huge, man, and I just always wish the best for the guy. He's a tremendous person. He's a tremendous fighter, and he's just a massive star.
Offering a contrasting perspective, Henry Cejudo has suggested that Alex Pereira's busy lifestyle may finally be catching up with him. He pointed to Pereira's extensive travel, frequent social media skits, and overall commitments outside the cage as factors that might be affecting his performance. Cejudo noted visible changes in Pereira's physique, stating that he appeared slightly softer and less sharp leading into his last fight. With the demands of fame and competition weighing on him, questions arise about whether adjustments will be necessary for Pereira to maintain his dominance in the octagon.
Not taking away anything from Ankalaev, because Ankalaev did beat Alex Pereira. But I will say this, I think Alex Pereira's lifestyle is finally kind of catching up to him. It's finally catching up to him, the travel, the shama, a lot of the skits and a lot of stuff that he's actually doing. It's really not doing him any service. The only reason why I say is because his body looked a little different, dude. He looked a little pudgier. He looked a little thicker in the face going in.
Further analyzing the fight, Cejudo acknowledged Magomed Ankalaev's performance, highlighting his composure and defensive discipline against Pereira. He pointed out that Ankalaev remained unfazed by Pereira's attacks, keeping his guard up throughout the fight and executing a smart, measured approach. Cejudo also noted that Pereira has historically struggled against southpaws, and Ankalaev capitalized on that weakness effectively. He emphasized the impact of Ankalaev's kicks, which played a crucial role in damaging Pereira and controlling the fight.
He did a really good job of his composure, bro. He didn't react to a lot of Pereira's things where, you know, a lot of these guys are like, Pereira throws and they'll like bring their arms. Like, the dude had his hands up the whole damn time. And not just that, but Alex Pereira also has trouble with southpaws, dude. And I said it in the beginning, dude. You take away his power, yeah, did he kick him? Cool. But Magomed Ankalaev did a really good job of kicking his legs too, man. With southpaw, he hurt Alex Pereira.
Building on this, Cejudo praised Magomed's strategic approach against Pereira, highlighting his ability to neutralize the former champion's strengths. He pointed out that Ankalaev effectively used kicks against a renowned kicker, maintained his composure, and controlled the fight by keeping Pereira against the cage. While some critics labeled the performance as boring, Cejudo dismissed that notion, calling it a masterful display of skill and strategy.
And that's exactly what Magomed Ankalaev, dude. He kicked the kicker. He stayed composed, and then he was able to keep up against the cage. I mean, I personally thought it was a masterpiece of how is it that Magomed Ankalaev actually competed. A lot of people will call it boring, but that's not it, man. Whether you win by an inch or a mile, Magomed Ankalaev did a really good job, dude, of hurting them.
Reinforcing this point, Henry emphasized Magomed Ankalaev's control in his fight against Alex, noting that his dominance was evident regardless of how the matchup was scored. He added, Ankalaev remonstrated and showed the fighter, the striker that he is. He pointed out that Ankalaev landed the more significant shots, even managing to buckle Pereira in the second round. Cejudo credited Ankalaev for effectively hurting Pereira and leaving no doubt about who had the upper hand throughout the fight.
He got the better shots. He buckled him at one point, I believe in the second. It was maybe, I would almost say, Kamaru, that it was either maybe 4-1 or 3-2, but it was all Ankalaev.
Continuing his analysis, Cejudo credited Magomed's victory over Pereira to a combination of factors, including composure, heavy use of kicks, and his southpaw stance. He pointed out that Pereira has historically struggled against southpaws, and Ankalaev capitalized on that weakness effectively. By neutralizing Pereira's strongest weapons, Ankalaev was able to shift the dynamic of the fight, making it difficult for the former champion to find his rhythm.
It was based on his composure. It was the fact that he was kicking the kicker, and also as we saw in the past, too, Alex Pereira does not do good with southpaws, because you take away that power, everything changes. So everything that I kind of talked about ended up happening, but I wasn't expecting Magomed Ankalaev to actually beat him. That was the only thing that I could say wrong, but stylistically, I feel like this was all Magomed Ankalaev. And
offering a different perspective, while Kamaru Usman agreed with Henry Cejudo on Magomed Ankalaev's dominance, he pushed back against the idea that Alex Pereira struggles against southpaws. Usman pointed to Pereira's victories over Khalil Roundtree and Yuri Prochazka, both southpaws, where he secured finishes. Instead of attributing the loss to a stylistic weakness, Usman suggested that Pereira usually dictates the pace of his fights, but looked different this time, unable to impose his usual game plan against Ankalaev.
I only partially agree with what you mean by he has problems with southpaw. I don't think so. Like, look, he fought Khalil Roundtree, a southpaw. He finished him. He fought Yuri, which when Yuri switched to southpaw after Pereira was destroying his leg, he still finished him. So I don't think he has a problem with southpaw. I think Pereira usually gets his way of breaking these guys down. But Henry, you're right. He looked a little different.
Building on this and claiming that the scorecard was just, Henry Cejudo added, "This wasn't a robbery, this was all Magomed, maybe 4-1 or 3-2. I want to say round 1 and maybe 3 to Pereira. Other than that, dude, to me, this was all Magomed Ankalaev."
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Expanding on this, Kamaru Usman echoed Henry Cejudo's breakdown of Magomed Ankalaev's dominance over Alex Pereira, acknowledging that all the judges scored the first round in Pereira's favor. He noted that the opening round was largely a battle for positioning, with Pereira landing some effective kicks early on. Usman pointed out that Pereira took a measured approach at the start, feeling out the fight before Ankalaev's strategy began to take control.
Honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think across the board, I would say I think all of the judges gave Alex Pereira that first round, and yeah, I could see that because they're both jockeying for position, and Alex Pereira landed some good kicks. As you can see at the beginning of that fight, he starts to kind of measure.
In addition to this, Kamaru highlighted how Alex Pereira appeared a step behind throughout the fight, struggling to keep up with Magomed Ankalaev's movement and speed. He pointed out that Ankalaev's subtle positional adjustments made a significant difference, forcing Pereira to constantly search for openings while being just a step too slow.
He was a step behind. As you see it, when they're both in the center and they're trying to jockey for position, Magomed Ankalaev is just able to people underestimate the slight movements, just getting out of position a little bit, and Magomed would do that, and it seemed like Alex was behind it was just a step slower trying to find him.
Building on this, Usman also emphasized the psychological battle, noting that Pereira, a towering presence in the octagon, typically grows in confidence as fights progress. However, Ankalaev never allowed that to happen. He wasn't intimidated, never backed down, and met Pereira head on. Instead of retreating, Ankalaev maintained constant pressure, standing his ground in the center of the octagon and walking Pereira down, preventing him from establishing his usual dominance.
And of course, Ankalaev definitely had the speed advantage. And one of the biggest things is Alex Pereira is a giant. And as the fight starts, he starts to build and build and build and gets even bigger and bigger and bigger. Ankalaev didn't let that happen. Ankalaev wasn't scared of him. He wasn't shook. He was in his face from the start. And you see them both. There were times they would be bouncing right in the center, trying to see who would take a step back. Ankalaev wasn't leaving. He was there. He walked him down.
In line with this, Cejudo suggested that a rematch between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira could be on the horizon. He pointed out that the UFC has a vested interest in Pereira remaining at the top, as he brings excitement, entertainment, and strong numbers to the promotion. Given Pereira's star power and ability to draw attention, Henry Cejudo believes the UFC would be eager to see him back in the title picture, making a rematch with Ankalaev a strong possibility.
What is next for Ankalaev? We heard Dana White said, oh yeah, possible rematch. In other words, the UFC, they do want a guy like Pereira to be a champion. They might want to. They might. No, of course. You know why? Shama. He brings entertainment. He brings the numbers, dude. Hey, the UFC's all
that's
based
not the
on
only
numbers.
reason.
He brings the excitement. He knocks people to. And that's what people do like him. That's what the UFC likes him.
Building on this, Kamaru Usman firmly believes that the UFC will set up a rematch between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. He pointed out that Pereira is the biggest star in the division and has torn through the competition, stopping top contenders dominantly. Given his track record and marketability, Usman sees a rematch as inevitable, as the UFC would likely want to give Pereira another shot at reclaiming the title.
I think they do a rematch for sure, because Alex Pereira is the star in that division. He's been through that division. He's stopping all the guys back to back to back. So I think this warrants a rematch. For the company's standpoint, me not so much, because it wasn't like something freakishly happened. He just was kind of outclassed that night, you know.
In addition, Michael Bisping weighed in on Alex Pereira's defeat, suggesting that factors beyond the fight itself may have played a role. He reiterated Joe Rogan's reports that Pereira suffered from a broken hand and possibly the norovirus leading up to the bout. These setbacks, according to Bisping, could have significantly impacted Pereira's performance, raising questions about how much they affected his ability to compete at his usual level.
That's why he's no longer the champ. That's why the crowd wasn't excited, and that's why he looked a little bit flat. Apparently a broken hand, and he had the norovirus as well, which basically is flu-like symptoms. You got diarrhea, you're on the toilet, you got a bad stomach. First of all, I just want to say that's not Alex Pereira that said that.
Building on this, Bisping pointed out that the UFC has extensive resources, including the Performance Institute, medical teams, and staff dedicated to ensuring fighters are in peak condition before stepping into the octagon. He suggested that if Alex was dealing with a broken hand and possibly the norovirus, there's a strong chance that some within the organization were aware of it. Bisping also noted that as an insider, Joe Rogan likely wouldn't have mentioned anything about Pereira's condition before the fight, further fueling speculation about whether these issues impacted his performance.
Now, of course, Joe Rogan being a UFC insider, one of the OGs of the sport, he's going to get to hear things, okay? And the UFC know. They have the PI, they have doctors, they have teams, they have people checking on your well-being, and they want to make sure that you get to the octagon in the best health possible, so you can put on the best performances and entertain the fans, and everyone gets value for money. So there's a very good chance that there was some rumblings about this, okay? And of course, Rogan's not going to say anything beforehand, but he said afterwards on his podcast, apparently.
Moreover, Michael Bisping noted that Joe Rogan had heard from his sources that Alex Pereira was dealing with a broken hand ahead of his fight. However, Bisping clarified that Rogan never outright claimed this as fact. Instead, he simply acknowledged that there were discussions about potential issues affecting Pereira's health, but stopped short of fully confirming the extent of the situation.
He heard that he had a broken hand. Now, to be fair to Alex Pereira, he hasn't come out and said this, okay? He did an interview and he came out and he said, yeah, there was some issues, but he never said.
In addition, Michael praised Pereira for not using his rumored injury or illness as an excuse for his loss. He noted that despite reports of a broken hand and possible illness, Pereira has not attempted to leverage these issues to push for an immediate rematch. Instead, he handled the defeat with professionalism, earning Bisping's respect for accepting the result without making excuses.
He's kind of alluding to a little bit of an issue, a little bit of a problem, but didn't come out saying my hand was broken, okay? So first and foremost, massive respect to Alex Pereira. Because if Joe Rogan came out and said it, he could have gone down that path and said, well, yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but seeing as it's out there now, yeah, that's true. Now, the reality is he probably had a sore hand.
Building on this, Michael Bisping addressed the significance of Alex Pereira's rumored broken hand, explaining that during a fight, adrenaline often masks the pain of such injuries. However, the real problem arises if the bone was already broken during training camp, as it would severely limit a fighter's preparation and effectiveness leading into the bout. Bisping suggested that if Pereira was dealing with this issue before fight night, it could have had a much greater impact on his performance than the injury itself during the fight.
This swollen wrist here, that's broken. That was probably from blocking a head kick at some point. That happened in a UFC fight. Shit goes wrong in fights, okay? But when it happens in the fight, a lot of the time with the adrenaline, you don't really feel it. It's when it happens in the training camp that it really becomes a problem. I've hurt my hands many times in training camp. You throw a punch, you crack someone's head, you punch an elbow, throwing an uppercut, whatever it is, and your hand all swells up. Then you got to put it in ice for ages.
However, Bisping also analyzed Alex Pereira's approach against Magomed Ankalaev, pointing out that while Ankalaev doesn't possess the same elite wrestling pedigree as Dagestani fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov or Islam Makhachev, he is still a capable grappler with a history of securing takedowns. Bisping explained that this threat likely forced Pereira to be more cautious, affecting his striking output. However, despite the pressure, Pereira managed to defend well, with Bisping noting that he stuffed around 20 takedown attempts. This showed that Pereira was prepared for the wrestling exchanges and proved he could hold his own in that aspect of the fight, and in the rematch will be ready.
As a striker, when you're going out there against somebody like Magomed Ankalaev, who granted doesn't have the wrestling of a Khabib or an Islam Makhachev, right? He's just not that type of guy, but he can wrestle, and he did go for takedowns, and he has taken down lots of his previous opponents that causes you to clam up. Now, Pereira knows he can stop those takedowns. He stopped about 20 takedowns. I don't know what the exact number is, but every single one. Not once did Alex Pereira hit the canvas. So now that's going to give him the mental fortitude.
As speculation swirls around Alex Pereira's next move, one thing remains clear. His star power in MMA is undeniable. Whether a rematch with Magomed Ankalaev materializes or new challenges emerge, Pereira's resilience and presence keep him at the center of the conversation. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving us a like and sharing with a fellow MMA fan. Also subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a beat to the latest combat sports news.